What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Some more commentary for you. As always, I have Marcus with me. We actually have a new logo that we put up on the screen for those of you that complained. No images yet. We haven't moved, I guess, really no video yet, but there's an image there. So enjoy it and bask in all its glory. Try to stare at it and tell yourself that it doesn't move, all those good things. So we are going to talk today about maybe the most controversial thing right now in the community. I just did an extremely successful video on it, and it's game scripting. And the reason I wanted to bring Marcus in to talk about this is he does so much more franchise than I do. And when I think about scripted games, when I think about trying to force those scenarios, I would think that they would be much more prevalent in his gameplay experience than, say, mine, which maybe just is online matches or play now matches or Madden Ultimate Team. So putting together a season, Marcus, have you ever ran into those issues where you say, this scenario sounds like or feels like it's kind of been predetermined for me?
Yeah, 100%. And it's definitely one of those things that it's hard to prove. So it is going to be a controversial topic, kind of like you mentioned. But I think we've all had that Madden game where it just feels like you're playing against an absolute hurricane. I've actually even made videos calling it, playing against Hurricane EA. Like it literally, you can't get that throw on third down, or you constantly get false starts, or you fumble 3 times in a game, and it definitely stacks up over time because you have it happen once or twice in a game as you play 1,000 hours of Madden, and it's like, okay, that's just bad luck. But when you've played 20-25 games like this, where it's like there is just no chance that this is how it's working out, and it is something we talk about in our online leagues a lot, where it's like this game felt scripted, and it's like 3 or 4 times a year spread out between our 32 users. And, I don't have hard evidence for this. You provided some in that nice video you did. But it definitely does seem like there is some sort of scripting setting up just based off of kind of what the game might want to, for a difficulty standpoint, or to create a scenario where games look differently as you play them. It does make sense that this could be in the game.
Well, there's an ebb and flow to it, right? I mean, we've all been there. I mean, we've sat there, we've gotten the fumble recover, we've gotten that big interception, and then lo and behold, you come to a next play, and now you've done something inexplicably bad. Whether you throw a wild off-target pass that gets picked, or you have the best, most secure-handed running back fumble the ball all of a sudden, I think any player in the game has had one of those moments, and we may all categorize them differently. To me, I've always called it a give back. The game knows, in my opinion, it knows when it's done something to you, and then it's going to give it back to you. We've all seen, I think, those bogus little things that happen. But the interesting thing is, when we talk about what it's designed to do, is keep you interested and keep you engaged. When you talk about DDA, which EA has talked about having in their game, there's obviously some patent technology there. What it's really what it's designed to do, and what it wants to cause, is when you get complacent or when you're not enjoying the game. And I don't know how it would sense that, but it does. And it does something to keep you engaged. Of course, if we're talking about keeping someone engaged, just go to a regular football game. What are the most exciting plays? Kick returns, interceptions, fumbles, play action touchdowns. It's going to give those things to you. But it does seem to me like there's way too much buildup that happens. There's something that we can all agree happens. We don't exactly know what it is. We can't pinpoint it, but we all know that something happens, and then it seems like there's this almost strange course of events that takes place, and it's different for all of us. Like you said, I showed my example of, here's a player that runs into a lineman aimlessly. Here's a player that can't throw a ball on target. And then all of a sudden, when it's needed the most accurate player in the world, and then goes right back to being inept. That doesn't make logical sense. So from your aspect with franchise, when you come in and you face a rookie quarterback, do you truly feel like this rookie quarterback plays like a rookie quarterback the whole game? Or do you feel like there's a point where maybe when they need to score, this quarterback can just turn it on and be on fire?
Yeah, and it's almost like the quarterback The problem is people want this immersive experience, and the quarterback is a different guy every play, and that is definitely an issue. I will say I think when it comes to the computers, and I don't know anything about coding, I almost say it makes sense to have something like this. It's clearly got issues, but something that can make that big play happen, even if you're on a lower difficulty or whatever, to keep you engaged against a computer. Because as someone that has played so much franchise, you do start to just kind of dominate these computers. So from that element, I guess it makes sense. There's probably better ways to do it if they're doing this, but in a competitive environment, this is terrible. And it's funny you mentioned kick returns, because in our online league, I have now had 3 games throughout the course of this, going back to Madden 18, where it's almost like everything's been going against me all game. And then at the exact moment in the fourth quarter, like right after I take the lead, they'll somehow have perfect blocking on a kick return. Like I cannot shed a block to save my life. And again, you can just say it's just bad luck. You can say it's scripting or whatever. But you mentioned this on our last show, I think. This is a game that, is played competitive for money. If people aren't already, people will eventually start gambling on this. And if you're going to play this as a competitive video game, and competitive video game, as a sport is a very legitimate industry. So that's a very big issue right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys out there, not yourself, not myself, and I've talked about them, and I respect these guys. Listen, anybody that goes out and does whatever they want in the video game industry to make a game better, or to promote themselves, or to make themselves viable, or to make themselves income, I love all that. I'm all for people being entrepreneurs and utilizing video games as an outlet to do that. But as you mentioned, there's professional esport Madden players. There's people that will sell you an ebook. There's people that will tout they have skills to companies that want to sponsor them. There's big business back behind all this. And I think that's part of the problem in a nutshell, like you talked about. A lot of this stuff isn't really controllable, right? I mean, we can't replicate a lot of these moments. Even kind of that's the heart of the conversation we're having is, well, we think that there's something there. We've all had these similar experiences, but, we really, like we talked about, can't pinpoint it. So what is it, or is it there? So let's kind of look at it the other way. Let's say it's not there. What is the other side of the coin? Unlike a traditional video game, sports games don't have different levels. They don't have, the boss, if you will, where you're going to work your way up through these different players, and then all of a sudden you're going to get to the end and the best player is there that you're going to beat. If you have that in a game, right? So let's say we put this in Madden, and in some ways online it's there. Everybody uses the same teams. We know that. Would you feel more comfortable saying, okay, maybe there is GDA in the game, but to remove it, you're going to have teams like the Patriots. They're going to be next to impossible to beat on a weekly basis. You're going to have teams like the Chiefs that are going to just boat race you and put up 40, 50 points. You're going to have teams like the Browns that are going to not be so great some weeks, but other weeks they're going to be unbeatable. Is that what you want to see? Or do you think maybe just the overall approach of every game is going to play out, every game is going to kind of follow this script to it, where maybe the players in the game don't matter as much, but you're going to get a competitive experience that's at least going to keep you engaged on a game-to-game basis? Whereas maybe if we did it the other way, you get there and you say, oh, it's the Patriots. I can't beat them. I'll just sim this game.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And that's, you're talking about potentially, macro scale changing how franchise looks and feels. I'm going to go ahead and say no. I don't think that's healthy. I think what would be healthy is you have a better, stronger connection to how good the coach is, how good the quarterback is, and how does that impact how that AI works and thinks. And it's not easy to code a game to, think and process all of this information it's hard enough for a quarterback in real life to do it, but to teach a computer to do that is a completely different story. So if this is a way for them to almost assist the computer into trying to replicate some of these things we're talking about, I think that's fair, but it's definitely, and I'm just thinking about your video where Mitch Trubisky sails a ball on first down, idiotic on second down, and then third down, the computer seemingly decides they're going to convert this play. And I see that as a decent assist to the computer. And for now, I'm actually almost going to say I'm okay with it in the computer versus user scenario. My biggest thing is going to be, how can you possibly have that be an integral part of your game, but also remove it from a user versus user element? And, that to me seems almost impossible.
Well, here we go down the rabbit hole, because if you were going to tell me that user versus user is one thing, but user versus computer is another, my response to you would be, I can only control one player. So if that was you playing against me in that game, and I do all those idiotic things, I overthrow a ball, I hit lob pass when I shouldn't, and then the next play I get a little discombobulated, I run into my lineman and you sack me. But then the third play, I throw this dead accurate pass to the open receiver. How do you stop it? I mean, you literally would have to have been the cornerback that was covering that receiver, break on the route faster than the computer did, and then use the correct button combination to actually react in time to pick it. I mean, listen, you can set Madden skill and Madden players aside. There's a human interaction to this where you don't know what button I'm going to hit. The game is not going to select you to that player fast enough because it doesn't know what button I'm going to hit. So how are you going to put yourself in a 5-second play to one of 11 players that properly need to be done, unless you're just going to lurk and run around the field? To me, that's my problem. I don't see where that's possible. Even if it's user versus user, you are still at the mercy of the player the computer is selecting to give you when you switch off the player you're using. So if you're on the D line and you switch, you've got a 1 in 10 chance of hitting the wrong play. Well, I guess you'd have a 9 in 10 chance of hitting the wrong player. So that whole concept and that whole debate, that whole defense, never really made sense to me, because you've got a really high percentage of failing on that play online too.
Anything, whether it's fantasy football or real life football, you want to remove randomness and make skill the number one priority. And if you literally have the video game deciding what's going to happen, or saying, we're just going to give you this receiver is going to get open on this play, whether even if he's a 65 overall, matched up on Jalen Ramsey, and from a skill standpoint, if you say you do that, if you're on offense, if you're on defense, you may put that guy there because you know that that's where he's going to go, and that should shut that down. But if the game decides, nope, the rating isn't actually going to matter on this play, it's just going to be there. That's a big issue.
Let me ask you this in terms of your franchise, and then we'll leave the video at this. I'm going to let you end this. This year in your franchise, did you feel from one game to the next you could game plan for the way a team's strengths were, whether it was a quarterback or running back, or did you actually have to game plan around a defense to, as you just mentioned, throw away from a corner, stay away from a rush on one side? Did you genuinely feel like you got different team experiences going from game to game, and how you played them actually mattered in the scheme of how you actually went about winning or losing?
No. And, I used to, maybe 3 years ago, try and pretend okay, we're playing the Patriots this week. We got to run a lot of man coverage, try to get after Tom as quickly as we can. But no, now I don't even look at my opponent as far as who's on the roster, because it all feels the same. I mean, you might get a quarterback that runs a little more than another one, or a team might have a shutdown corner that you want to avoid. But on a big scale, you're really not thinking about that stuff as a franchise player.
There is no worse indictment you could say about Madden in franchise mode, in my opinion, than what you just said. So we appreciate you guys checking out this video. If you want to go and give Marcus a follow, I will leave all his information down in the description. Would appreciate if you went and checked out his channel, and we will be back in the week with more commentary.